The architecture of attention. A psychological analysis of active listening in the high-velocity landscape of modern American life, characterized by the ping of notifications, the pressure of productivity, and the polarization of public discourse. We are witnessing a crisis of connection. We communicate more than any civilization in history, yet we reportedly feel heard less than ever. This paradox exists because we have conflated the physical act of hearing with the psychological art of listening. Hearing is a physiological event. It is the reception of sound waves by the ear and the transmission of neural impulses to the brain. It is passive and involuntary. If you have functioning ears, you cannot help but hear a siren or a jackhammer. Active listening, conversely, is a cognitive and emotional choice. It is a high-energy psychological event that requires the suspension of the ego, the regulation of one's own emotional state, and the deliberate allocation of attention. It is not merely the absence of speaking, it is the presence of attention. This analysis explores the mechanics of active listening, the psychological barriers that impede it, and the transformative power it holds for our professional and personal lives. Part 1. The psychology of the me filter. To understand why we struggle to listen, we must first understand how our brains process information. Human beings are, by default, autobiographical listeners. When someone speaks to us, our brain does not act as a blank tape recorder. Instead, we instantly filter their words through our own experiences, biases, and current emotional needs. This is often called the me filter. When a colleague mentions a stressful project, your brain might immediately jump to, "Oh, that reminds me of when I handled the Q3 reports." When a spouse complains about fatigue, the brain counters with, "I'm tired too, I've been working all day." The 4 villains of passive listening. Psychologists identify 4 common listening blocks that arise from this autobiographical default. The fixer. Particularly prevalent in us culture, which prizes pragmatism and solutions. The fixer listens only long enough to identify a problem, then immediately interrupts to offer a solution. Psychological driver. The need for control and the desire to alleviate one's own anxiety caused by the other person's distress. The rehearser. This person looks like they are listening, but they are actually crafting their rebuttal or next point. Their mental bandwidth is consumed by their internal monologue, not the speaker's voice. Psychological driver. Performance anxiety and the need to appear intelligent or witty. The judge. The judge filters the conversation through a moral or intellectual critique. They are listening for errors, contradictions, or points of disagreement. Psychological driver. The need for superiority or ego protection. The hijacker. The hijacker uses the speaker's words as a springboard to talk about themselves. "I went to Hawaii last year," says the speaker. "Oh, I love Hawaii." "We stayed in Maui," replies the hijacker. Psychological driver. Narcissistic tendencies or a lack of social awareness regarding reciprocal connection. Active listening requires the conscious suppression of these 4 villains. It demands that we move from an autobiographical mode, self-centered, to an empathetic mode, other-centered. Part 2. The core components of active listening. True active listening is a whole-body experience. It is not just about the ears, it is about the eyes, the posture, and the mind. It rests on 3 psychological pillars, heavily influenced by the work of humanistic psychologist Carl Rogers. 1. Congruence, authenticity. You cannot fake active listening. If your face says "I am interested" but your mind is checking your mental to-do list, the speaker will pick up on the micro-expressions of distraction. Humans are evolutionarily wired to detect inattention. Congruence means your internal intent matches your external behavior. You must genuinely want to know what the other person is experiencing. 2. Unconditional positive regard. This does not mean you agree with everything the speaker says. It means you accept the validity of their perspective as their truth. In a polarized political climate, common at many American Thanksgiving tables, this is the hardest skill to master. It involves saying to oneself, "I disagree with their conclusion, but I respect their right to feel this way and I am curious about how they got there." 3. Empathic understanding. This is the ability to sense the speaker's private world as if it were your own, without ever losing the as-if quality. It is the distinction between sympathy, feeling for someone, and empathy, feeling with someone. Part 3. The toolkit. Techniques for mastery. Active listening is a skill, much like playing an instrument or learning a sport. It requires specific techniques to move from theory to practice. Technique A. Reflective listening, the mirror. This is the foundation. It involves paraphrasing what the speaker said to ensure accuracy. However, it must be done without parroting, repeating word for word, which can feel mocking. The formula. It sounds like you are feeling emotion because context. Example. Instead of saying "I hate my boss," and you replying "that sucks," a reflective listener says, "It sounds like you're feeling really undervalued and frustrated by how your manager is treating you." Why it works. It forces the listener to process the information deeply. More importantly, it gives the speaker a psychological mirror, allowing them to hear their own thoughts played back. This often leads the speaker to clarify or deepen their own understanding. Technique B. Labeling, affect labeling. Neuroscience research, particularly from UCLA, shows that when we label an emotion, we decrease the activity in the amygdala, the brain's alarm center, and increase activity in the prefrontal cortex, the regulation center. The action. When you hear an underlying emotion, name it. The phrase, "You seem really torn about this decision," or "I can hear the disappointment in your voice." The result. This helps de-escalate high emotion situations. It tells the speaker, "I see your pain/joy/fear." Technique C. The art of the open-ended question, closed questions, yes/no, shut down exploration. Open-ended questions invite depth. In the US corporate world, we often ask closed questions to get to the bottom line. Active listening requires the opposite. Closed. Did you like the meeting? Open. What was your takeaway from the meeting? The Ted Lasso approach. Be curious, not judgmental. Ask questions starting with what and how. Be careful with why, which can sometimes sound accusatory. Technique D. Strategic silence. In Western culture, silence is often viewed as awkward or a void to be filled. In active listening, silence is a tool. When a speaker finishes a sentence, the average American pauses for less than 0.5 seconds before responding. The exercise. Try the 3-second rule. When the other person stops speaking, count to 3 in your head before you say a word. The outcome. Often, the speaker is not done. That silence gives them permission to go deeper, to access the second layer of their thought. You will be amazed at what people reveal in those extra 3 seconds. Part 4. Application in the workplace. In the US economy, which is increasingly service and knowledge-based, soft skills are hard currency. Active listening is a power skill. 1. Psychological safety and innovation. Google conducted a famous internal study, Project Aristotle, to see what made their best teams effective. The answer wasn't IQ or resources, it was psychological safety, the belief that one will not be punished or humiliated for speaking up. Active listening is the mechanism that creates psychological safety. When leaders listen without the judge or fixer villain appearing, employees feel safe to share risky, innovative ideas. 2. Conflict de-escalation. Most workplace conflicts are not about facts, they are about invalidation. When an employee feels their grievance has been truly heard, mirrored and labeled, their defensiveness drops. You cannot fight someone who is accurately summarizing your point of view. Managerial tip. Before engaging in a performance review or negotiation, ask yourself, do I want to win this conversation, or do I want to understand it? 3. Efficiency. It seems counterintuitive that listening, which takes time, improves efficiency. However, slow is smooth, and smooth is fast. The vast majority of corporate errors and rework stem from instructions that were heard but not understood. Investing 5 minutes in active listening at the start of a project saves 5 hours of fixing mistakes later. Part 5. Application in personal relationships. If active listening is currency at work, it is the very oxygen of personal relationships. 1. The Gottman bids. The Gottman Institute, renowned for its research on marital stability, discusses bids for connection. When a partner says, "Wow, look at that bird," they aren't talking about ornithology. They are asking for attention. Turning away. Ignoring the comment. Turning against. "I'm reading, stop distracting me." Turning toward, active listening. "Oh, that's beautiful. Is that a cardinal?" Relationships die not from massive arguments, but from the accumulation of ignored bids. Active listening captures these small moments. 2. Validation versus agreement. The biggest trap in family dynamics is the belief that listening implies agreement. This is false. You can validate a teenager's anger about a curfew without removing the curfew. Invalidating. You don't need to be angry, it's for your own safety. The fixer/judge. Validating. I hear that you feel controlled and embarrassed because your friends get to stay out later. I get that it feels unfair. Active listener. When people feel understood, they are less likely to escalate their behavior to force you to understand. 3. Removing the nail. There is a popular viral video titled "It's Not About the Nail." In it, a woman complains about pressure in her head while having a literal nail stuck in her forehead. The man keeps trying to mention the nail, the fixer, while she demands he just listen to her pain. It is a comedic exaggeration, but a profound truth. In emotional conversations, logic is often interpreted as dismissal. Active listening requires we address the emotion, the pressure, before we address the logic, the nail. Part 6. Exercises for developing the skill. You cannot read your way to being a better listener, you must practice. Here are 3 exercises to sharpen your skills. Exercise 1. The Raza method. Julian Treasure. Receive. Pay attention to the person, eye contact, phone away. Appreciate. Make little noises like oh, okay. Summarize. The word "so" is the most important word in listening. So, what you're saying is, ask. Ask questions afterward. Exercise 2. The vantage point shift. In your next disagreement, set a rule. You are not allowed to state your opinion until you can summarize the other person's position to their satisfaction. This forces you to stop rehearsing your argument and start downloading their perspective. It changes the entire chemical composition of the argument. Exercise 3. The No I challenge. Try to hold a conversation for 5 minutes without using the word I, me, or my. This is incredibly difficult. It forces you to focus entirely on the other person and ask questions about them, rather than relating everything back to your own biography. Conclusion. The ultimate act of respect in a culture obsessed with broadcasting, via social media, podcasts, and personal branding, receiving has become a lost art. We treat listening as the waiting period before we can speak again. But listening is not passive. It is an act of love. It is an act of respect. When you actively listen to someone, you are giving them your most limited and valuable resource. Your time and your cognitive focus. You are saying, you are worth hearing. You exist. Your experience matters. Whether navigating a high-stakes negotiation in a Manhattan boardroom or comforting a crying child in a suburban living room, the mechanism is the same. By clearing the me filter, embracing the silence, and validating the human across from us, we do not just hear data, we foster the connection that makes the human experience endurable and meaningful. Active listening is not just a technique, it is a way of being in the world. It is the art of letting others be heard, and in doing so, finding that we are less alone ourselves.